we are part of a global oil market, right? And so, if you have some kind of, conflict or geopolitical disturbance, right, in one part of the world, right, that is like throwing a rock in a pond, and the effects just ripple all the way through the global oil market. Seth Blumsack, professor of energy policy and economics and co-director of the Center for Energy Law and Policy. Because of this conflict in Iran, right, we are going to see and are starting to see impacts here at home on prices at the pump, right? Because this conflict is disrupting so much of the world's oil supply, right? That there's less oil coming out of the Middle East, not just Iran, but other countries. And that demand for oil is still there, like it doesn't go away. And so in this global oil market, right, you are going to have buyers of oil basically scrambling to find replacement shipments of oil, right? And those buyers out there scrambling for whatever barrels they can get, that's going to push up the price globally. That's going to impact the cost that refiners and gas stations have to pay for oil, and that is ultimately going to increase prices at the pump. Prices at the pump in the US have started to go up because of this conflict, right? And, right now we're seeing, prices go up by, 10 cents, 15 cents, 20 cents a gallon. The average price of gas across the entire US right now is a little more than $3. But if this conflict drags on, and if these shipments of oil out of the Middle East are interrupted for a long period of time, we could see $100 oil, like $100 a barrel oil, not before too long. And $100 a barrel oil means gas prices here in the US of $4 per gallon or even higher. We do see this behavior in gasoline prices where as soon as there's some disturbance, the price goes up, right? And then it seems to take a sort of an unusually long time to go back down. And a lot of this is really the dynamics of the oil market, right? When there's a big shock like we're seeing in the Middle East and all of this supply gets disrupted, there's sort of two things that happen at the same time, right? The first is you have buyers out there scrambling to get whatever barrels they can get their hands on. The second thing that you have happening is we have a tremendous amount of oil in storage, and so refiners and other buyers of oil, right, if they can't find the barrels that they need on the open market, they'll start drawing their storage down. So that's like they're depleting their savings, right? But you can't do that forever. And once you deplete your savings, you don't want to let it be you don't want to let it sit at that low level, because then you won't be ready for the next crisis. Once a crisis resolves itself and that supply keeps flowing, there's still these buyers on the market that are really hungry for barrels of oil so that they can replenish the storage that they had drawn down during the crisis, right? And so this is one reason that we see an immediate response when the crisis hits, and we see kind of a much softer landing. There are probably also cases, just to be perfectly honest, where you have sellers of oil or gasoline or refiners, right, that see themselves as being able to exercise market power, right, and because that demand for oil isn't going away, right, and to be able to sustain high prices, right, after the crisis ends, to increase their profits, right, and so I think what we see is really some combination of those two things, and it can be hard to pull them apart. Iran globally is not a major producer of oil the way that the United States or Saudi Arabia is a major producer of oil, right? But they are in this, they are, in the Middle Eastern region that collectively is a major producer of oil. Now, most of the oil that comes out of that region, and this is a pretty big chunk of global oil trade, I think it's about 30% or something like that. That Middle Eastern oil that's produced, it has to flow through basically one waterway called the Strait of Hormuz in order to get to global markets. And so as part of this conflict, Iran has been able to effectively blockade shipping traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. And this is where the supply disruption is coming from. It's not because some Iran or some other country has lost the ability to produce oil. What they have lost, like where the bottleneck is in shipping, the ability to move it around from the Middle East to different parts of the world.